Chapter 10, Def Jam. I got back home and Rita was so excited to see me. Joe and Jada ran up to my leg while Rita and I just looked at each other smiling. I greeted Rita as she continued to do the dishes. I walked up behind her, kissing on her ears, rubbing on her stomach as she reached her soapy hands back and started rubbing my head. I turned the water off, put Jada and Joe in front of the TV with cartoons and snacks, took her in the room, and licked every part of her sexy body. Rita had started complaining that she'd gotten fat after the baby. To me, she gained weight in all the right places, and any part of her body she complained about, I gave extra special attention. Afterwards, she lit up her blunt and I shared stories about my rock star life. Her first question, and what about the girls? I just told her the truth. Even if I wanted to do something, I couldn't. My father was too much on top of me and Demo. He kept us busy always doing something, and we never stayed anywhere long enough to meet any girls. We'd set up, do a show, pack up, back to the hotel, sleep, board the plane, and repeat. Her only response was, uh-huh. And I know I'm lying like a motherfucker. I'm lying like a motherfucker. Nah. This ain't in the book, but, she wasn't too far off. Listen, we keeping it real here, right? All right. Back to the book. I decided the next time we went out, I was going to bring copies of my mixtapes, so I got them replicated. Amsterdam was my favorite place. Everybody was so nice. We stayed at a hotel that was close to the red light district. There, women were inside a building facing the street in their own private windows on display wearing only sexy negligees, ready to trade sex for money. And it was legal. They also had trucks parked along the side of the street with fully furnished bedrooms in them to have sex for a fee. I was raised in Hunts Point and learned early, only tricks pay for pussy. Up the block, they also had a store that sold all kinds of weed. This was also legal. It was amazing to see people walking around in public smoking weed right in front of the police. I'd figured out why everyone was so nice. Next door to the hotel was a boutique with exclusive Hilfiger gear. Andy Hilfiger was there and knew who my father was. He liked me and asked if I would wear his clothes for the show. I'd earlier put it together why rich and famous people were given things for free. Marketing and advertising. If a famous person wore their product, that famous person's fans would then go buy what they saw that famous person wearing. It was business. Good business. I turned it down so I didn't seem greedy, but he insisted. And my father told me it would be considered rude, so I accepted. He told me I could pick whatever I wanted. I picked a couple of outfits, thanked him, and told him it was a pleasure meeting him. I got back to the hotel and sat in the lobby, waiting for my dad to come back in. I wasn't sure where Demo was, but I didn't want to go back upstairs by myself. It was showtime. This time, I killed it. I asked my dad if at the next show I could get a few minutes to do one of my songs. I'd shown him I was a fast learner, so I just took a shot. He said yes. As we were getting into the last song on the set, the rapper Coolio, sleep in peace, walked out onto the stage. I couldn't believe it. I was on stage performing with Coolio. I passed him the mic. When he finished, he passed it back. When we finished, I bowed down to him. He instantly and gracefully bowed right back down to me. Then we bowed to the audience and walked off stage. When we got backstage, I fell flat on my back. Everybody rushed over to me to make sure I was okay. I stared straight up at the ceiling, lying on my back with a big cheese on my face, and said, "I just performed with Coolio." Everybody laughed, smacking me in my head, telling me to get up and how I had scared them. Next stop, Winchester, London. We got to the UK, where everything was opposite for me. The steering wheels were on the opposite side, and so was the road. People drove crazy with their tiny vehicles, swerving and slashing through traffic, bending corners at high speeds as if driving safely was an abnormal occurrence. New York City driving had nothing on these people. We got to the hotel and Demo started talking to this guy sitting in the lobby. I didn't recognize him until Demo came and told me it was the singer Mario. He had the hit song Just a Friend and was promoting his new single Let Me Love You. He looked like a street dude, white do-rag and a red hoodie. He had a good vibe about him. We got upstairs and this big, tall, white dude was assigned to me as my security/escort. I didn't understand why I needed security. Nobody even knew who I was. My father told me to get dressed because I was going to be getting interviewed and they wanted to take pictures of me. I got fresh to death in my green and white Boston Celtics bucket, green and white Timbs, my Free Hilfiger jeans, green and white Jabot shirt, got down to the lobby and it was go time. My dad rode with his escort in a separate car, while I rode with my escort and Demo. Wherever it was, I don't remember, but there were a lot of celebs there. I could barely see because as soon as I stepped out, I was blinded by the cameras flashing in my face. My escort walked me in, and I saw a huge banner that read, Homelands. He walked me down to the red carpet to an area that had a big wall with MTV logos all over it. The photographers called out, "JayFlo, over here," and blinded me with the flash. They kept calling me, so I kept turning my head, giving them the best hip-hop faces, stances, and poses I grew to have naturally. I was still blinded and could only hear. As I posed for the pictures, I heard my dad's voice on the side of me eerily saying things like, "Is this what you want? You ready to be a star? This is what it is, Joe. You ready for this life?" All while the cameras were flashing. He sounded like a demon to me. He'd killed the fun. I just ice grilled him and walked off. The escort took me to an area where I got interviewed. I answered a couple questions and let them know my relationship with hip hop, but my mood was blown, so I just cut it short. Tim Westwood walked up to my dad and started to talk to him. My dad introduced me, but Tim gave me a half-hearted hey and kept talking to my dad. It was almost time for us to go on. At that moment, as I stood stage left, Dizzy Rascal was on stage, and the crowd was going crazy for him. "Fix up, look sharp," was all I could make out of this rapid-spitting, London-based rapper. I barely understood anything he was saying, but that's the thing with music. When it's good, your soul knows. I was afraid because we'd be up to perform soon, and my dad picked up on it. There were 30,000 people in the crowd. So far, the most I'd performed in front of was about 5,000. My dad said, whatever you put out to them, that's what you're gonna get back. Give them a lot of energy, you'll get it right back. Give them a little, same thing. You're the MC, the master. Don't forget it. It was time. Right then, I drifted off and let whatever that thing is inside of me take over, and boom, I was off. I covered that huge stage like it was 3 of me. My dad on the wheels of steel behind me and Demo at my side gave me the confidence I needed. DJ Jazzy Jeff of DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince snuck up on the stage, sat behind my pops, and had the best seat for the rest of the set. My pops taught me a lot of call and response techniques, so I had the crowd under my control. Halfway through the set, it was time for my 2-song solo performance. I could barely hear myself, but the reaction of the crowd let me know I was on point. I handed the show back over to my dad like a well-ran relay. He paused the show with a magical slowdown of the record he was spinning so he could make an announcement. He said, "Winchester, what's up?" As the crowd went crazy. He casually walked down from behind his turntable and waved for me to meet him center stage, put his arm around me, then said, "Winchester, I'd like to introduce you to JayFlo, the first artist on my new label, Adrenaline City Entertainment." The crowd went crazy, cheering and clapping. He continued, "JayFlo is not only special because he's my first artist, he's also my son." The crowd cheered so loud, it went silent. That's what I remember. Then the sound came back. After the announcement, my father got back in position and we finished the set. Demo, my father, and I walked center stage, joined hands, and took a bow. As we walked off to head backstage, all I heard was chants from the crowd saying, "JayFlo, JayFlo, JayFlo," repeating it over and over again. It was completely weird and totally overwhelming. Everybody backstage was just staring at me. When I finally met my father's eyes, they were out of place. In a room full of admiration and congrats toward me, my father's demeanor was puzzling. He hadn't said anything to me since we'd left the stage. It had all been because of him. Without him, no one would have even cared who I was. He'd made everything possible, and I needed his input desperately. I waited for him to say something, anything. We made it back to the hotel and still, nothing. I asked Demo what he thinks my pops thought, and he said, "You killed it." My dad's not saying anything. Don't sweat it. Your pops has his ways, but you did good, and everybody knows that. I ordered some food and watched TV while Demo talked on the phone. My dad, as usual, stayed in his room all night. The next day, it was time to check out and head back to the States. I met Demo already sitting downstairs with his luggage in the lobby. My dad called me up to the desk, and all I could think was, finally, he's going to say something. He says, Look at this, and slides a sheet of paper in front of me. It was an added charge of $400 for a phone call that was made from my room. I was like, dang, that's only one phone call? My dad, with a dead serious face, says, yes, Joe, it's an international call. Who's supposed to pay for this? I never used the phone, so I called Demo over and said to him, yo, that call you made was $400. My father said, sit down, Demo. Demo said nothing, went and sat down. My dad said, you let Demo make the call from your room, you're responsible for the bill. All I was expected to get was $400. So basically, he wanted me to go home with nothing. I kept calm, said nothing, and walked off. But I was boiling. We got to the airport, and on a layover somewhere, Fat Man Scoop, sleep in peace, and his brother, Young Sav, was seated not too far from me. I introduced myself and we started talking. I gave Young Sav a copy of my CD, and as we walked through the terminal, I noticed Funkmaster Flex and stopped to talk to him. I told him about my CD, but I didn't have any left. I remembered that I gave Demo a CD, so I ran over to Demo and promised I'd give him one when we got back to America. Demo gave me the disc, but as I'm running back over to where Funkmaster Flex is standing, my dad popped up out of nowhere, snatched the disc out of my hand like an interception, and walked back over to where our party was waiting. I glanced back at Flex. He met my eye and stood there. I just walked away. We got to LaGuardia Airport and I lost it. My father was still talking about not paying me, and his treatment of me was altogether intolerable. I was not going home with no money. On the ride to his house, everyone felt the tension between us, but these were my father's yes men and woman, his manager, Blue. When we pulled up to his house, I handled the situation the same way I would where somebody doesn't want to give me something I'm owed. The wrong way. I took my jewelry off way in the backseat of the 4-row van while noticing my dad take his jewelry off in the front passenger seat. We got to the front of his Long Island home, both hopped out, and everybody got right in between us. I calmly asked him, over everyone's shoulders, "Are you going to pay me my money?" He calmly went into his suitcase, pulled out his checkbook, wrote me a check for $400 and said, "You're off the tour." I couldn't believe this was really happening. I couldn't believe it. After that amazing performance I'd put on in London, I said, "What? Off the tour?" My father said nothing else. I said a whole lot as he offered me his back heading into his house, and I ended it with, "Fuck you." I didn't care at that moment. I grabbed my suitcase, turned around, and walked from his house all the way to the LIRR. The train helped it all to sink in. It really hit me. Hours before, I was JayFlo, adored by tens of thousands. Hours later, I was JoJo, headed uptown on the 2 train. I still had my job at Grand Prix, so I wasn't totally screwed. I got home to my family, sunk myself into them, and forgot all about London. Plus, I had a couple dollars, so we were good. I was a little depressed about the way things went down with my dad, but he relit a fuse in me that had went out. I'd let the thought of me getting on in the music industry go. Seeing and feeling the support of the people, knowing I can do what I love and make a living while supporting my family, made it an easy decision. I kept working at Grand Prix and kept selling my CD. One day I was downtown and the thought just hit me. Without hesitation, I acted on my thought. I went on 50th Street in Lower Manhattan to the building I knew to be Def Jam and walked in. Flashback. In my teens, DJ AJ Scratch, Sleep in Peace, took me personally to Leo Cohen's office. I rapped for him and he liked me, but all Leo would talk about was this guy, Jay-Z. He asked if I'd heard of him, what I thought of him, and had I heard his song, Ain't No Nick. My meeting was more about this other rapper than it was about me. He turned me down, told me to keep working, and his door was always open to me. End of flashback. This time, I entered the building through the deliveries entrance and pretended to be a foot messenger. I knew the procedure from being a foot messenger years before at Madison Square Garden. I got inside, made it to the elevator, and a man stopped me. Yo! I jumped, startled, turned around discouraged, and said, yeah. He said, you can't go up there without this. Gave me a sticker badge, and I was on my way. I got upstairs, got off the elevator to this grimy-looking area, and walked down the hall. I saw this big door at the other end, so I walked down and opened it. The other side had this huge, glamorous office space. Def Jam. I'd made it. I knew time was limited, so I tried to look for anyone who could help me, anyone who looked familiar. I pushed open door after door saying, sorry, wrong office. As I kept walking, I saw a silver-haired, chubby white guy coming down the hall who looked like a security officer, and he saw me. So I dipped into the office closest to me. It was occupied by about 8 black, young, hood-looking dudes. It just so happens it was Rockefeller CEO Dame Dash's office. One of the dudes looked at me and said, yo, who the fuck is you? The dude, who I'd later find out's name was Ramses. I just told the truth. My name is JayFlo. This is my CD. I want a record deal. Everybody just paused, looked at each other, looked back at me, then busted out laughing. Through the laughter, there was a knock on the door. That security guard. He looked at me, then looked at Ramses and said, how you doing, sir? Everything all right? He called the security guard by name and told him, yeah, everything's all right. And the guard closed the door. Ramses snatches the CD out of my hand and said, okay, spit. I said, but my disc, I got mad music on there. I understand that. Spit, or you can leave my office. You want a deal? This is what you got to do. You go up to Cam or anybody, they gonna tell you the same thing. If your shit is garbage, they won't even listen to your CD. It's going straight out the window. Spit. I don't know if it was me or Freeway who first asked that dumbass question. Can I get a beat? But Ramses' answer was the same as Swiss Beats. Nah, no beat. Alright, fuck it. I just started spitting. As I was spitting, Their reactions couldn't hide how dope they thought I was. I was feeling myself. Feeling myself right up until I got to the end of my verse, and the dude immediately started spitting right after me, trying to show me how dope my verse wasn't. The crowd was hype off the fact that he started spitting. Get him, Vane! Get him! Vane Lane. I tagged in at the end of his verse like it was planned. Uh-oh, what do we have here? I heard in the background. I gave all I had. The more I gave, the more Vane forced me to give. We went back and forth until Ramses stopped it. They all gave me props, and Ramses promised to listen to my CD. I headed back downstairs and something else dawned on me. As I exited the message center, I walked up to the mail clerk and said, "Yo, y'all get Leo Cohen's mail down here, don't y'all?" "Yes, sir. I deliver it to him personally." "So if I give you this CD, you'll make sure he gets it?" "Yes, sir. I most certainly will." "Okay, cool. And here's one for you." He looked at the cover and said, "Word? Yo, so how's your dad these days?" "Well, very well. He's touring and just started his own record label." "All right, JayFlo. I'll make sure Mr. Cohen gets this, man. Good luck." "Thanks. I appreciate it." I couldn't believe all that had happened. I took a chance, stepped up, and it paid off. I was so excited, I got home and told Rita all about it. Later that night, the house phone rings. Rita in the kitchen answers it and says, "Hello?" "Hey, Rita, it's Flash. Let me speak to Joe." Rita jokingly says, "Well, hello to you too, sir." Then in that shrill, searing, sonically fluid, annoying tone I'd come to love, Rita yells, "Joe! Phone!" I walked into the kitchen and calmly say, "You know I'm only in the next room, right?" She laughs and hands me the phone. I say, "Hello?" In a smiling, laughing tone, he says, "Hey, Joe, heard you stopped by Def Jam today." "Pops?" Shocked to hear from him, I continued excitedly, "What's up, Pops? Yeah, I was dropping my CD off, but bust how I got into the building, though." Proud of myself, about to tell him my story, he cut me off and said, "Since you won't listen to me, I'm going to let you hear it from the man himself," and hands the phone off. The voice said, "Hello?" I hadn't at that second caught on to the part where my dad said, "Since you won't listen to me," and was slightly excited that I was about to hear some good news. "Yeah, is this Joe Jr.?" I exuberantly replied, "Yes, sir." "Yeah, this is Leo Cohen. I'm here with your dad, and I don't know what's going on between you guys, but you've really got to work it out before we can do any business." "But I do my own thing. No one has any holds over me." "I understand that, and I respect what you do. But your father and I have been friends for over 20 years, and I just wouldn't want to disrespect that." "Well, did you listen to my CD?" "No, not yet, but keep doing what you're doing. My door is always open to you. Work out everything with your dad, and who knows. But right now, I gotta go, Joe. Hope to talk to you soon. I sorrowfully said, all right, man. My father got back on the phone immediately monologuing. And that's how it goes, Joe. You want in this business? It's through me. If not, you get out in the streets, build your own name, and do battle, just like I had to do. I built me and my group. Get your name known on your own and start making music people want to hear, Joe. That street shit is played out. I told you years ago, you got to make stupid songs. The average consumer is stupid and doesn't want to think after a hard day's work. If you want in, I'm the door. Now, I gotta go do this party. Talk to you soon. And hung up. I was stuck, holding the phone, listening to the tone. The garbage was full, which reminded me that Rita had already asked me a few times to take it out. Lil Joe was at the kitchen table falling asleep. Jada was eating a slice of pizza, and the Malcolm, Nelson, and Martin painting we had hanging on the wall drew me in as I thought to myself, why? Why, out of all the people on this planet called Earth, God had to make Grandmaster Flash my father? The phone's busy signal snapped me out of my trance. I felt with my father's actions, he wanted to keep me hid. My new album, The Best Kept Secret, was recorded in Hunts Point, next door from my old apartment at my man Verse's crib. Verse had a dope sound. He was from Brooklyn, but moved to the Bronx to raise his newborn baby with his wife. The album had all original beats, and after writing to all the beats, it took us just 3 days to record it. Sidebar real quick. Yo, Verse. What up, Verse? Yo, you remember? It's me, bro. It's me. Listen, I don't want to remember your son was just born. I think I bought your son his first pair of Jordans, yo. He was like months old. That's me, man. Verse, remember? This is my man Verse. He from Brooklyn, like I said, or whatever. Dope producer, yo. And when you think about the word verse, it's like if basketball teams are playing or it's a boxing match or whatever, it's always such and such versus such and such, right? So his name is Verse. So I told him I knew somebody named Verse already. Verse, my man Verse from Burnside. He actually battled Jin the rapper. You know, he didn't do that well, whatever, versus Jin, but he's dope. Verse is dope. you know, everybody have a bad game or whatever, but Verse is fire. So I was telling Verse from Brooklyn, yo, you do beats. My man Verse rap. He raps. So since you do beats, like that's production, you should call yourself VS.O.P. That's for Verse on Production. Yo, you should call yourself VSOP. Remember that? Remember that Verse? You know what I mean? I ain't speak to Verse in years, man. Years, yo. I hope everything is good, man. Your son should probably be like 20 by now or something like that. But yo, dog, man. That was a good time, man, over there, man. Getting it in. Oh, A-Star was there. Yo, what up, A-Star? You know, he another dope spitter. He was in the crib that day too. And yo, Verse, man, get at me, man. All right, let's get back to the book. The album was dope, but with no plan, no support, and most importantly, no money to promote it, I guess it really would be a secret. And that's how it stayed. I started going harder at my job, picking up new students. Anybody they threw me, I'd put them on my calendar instead of turning them down like before. Okay, time for another sidebar. Let me tell y'all something. Grand Prix Driving School, all right? 63rd Street and Lexington, if I remember, in Manhattan. If y'all ever heard of the battle rapper Iron Solomon, I helped him get his driver's license. It's crazy, right? Yo, I took him to his road. I taught him how to drive. Iron, it's me, kid. It's me, dog. That's me. All right? So I was Iron Solomon's driving instructor. I took him to his road test and all that, and he passed. Crazy. Back to the book. Once I got a $1,000 check for 5 days of just sitting in a car telling people what to do, I was off and running. This is how I was going to get the money I needed, I thought to myself. I might not have got to go hard with the last album I recorded, but I was already writing for my new album and had new ideas on how I was going to promote it. The following year, I recorded Trial and Error. It took about 5 weeks. The last album I recorded, The Best Kept Secret, had samples on every song. I'd heard about the negative effects samples can have on a record, how it can cause setbacks and become expensive even though it helps fans catch on quicker. Trial and Error had 16 songs and 1 sample on 1 song. I had a problem with the sample, but I figured I'd cross that bridge when I got to it. This was my first official album. It had a barcode, a booklet, graphic art on the CD, and the album was shrink wrapped. I got it pressed up immediately and started selling it in the streets of Atlanta where hip hop was beginning to dominate. I posted up in the parking lot at a club in Georgia one night called Club Chocolate. On this night, T.I. was performing, and a few of his people were standing outside in the parking lot. They saw me selling my CD in the crowd and asked me what I was doing. I started pitching to him in the same fashion I'd do with any potential purchaser. He bought 5 CDs and gave me a crispy $100 bill. I tried to give him his change, but he stopped me and said, "Nah, that's for you, shawty. Keep hustling." My CDs were $10 a pop. So basically, he bought 5 CDs and just gave me $50. I caught a light bulb. I needed to get back home. Fuck it. It's now or never. I was determined to be heard. Somebody was giving me a deal.